Oh, lovely. Thank you, sweetheart. Well, good morning and welcome to Thursday. Oh, Thursday. Signal day in our calendar because it's when John Henty comes along and stirs the pot. What an active guy he is. Up and down to Brighton all the time, keeping things going down there. What would they do without him? What would we do without him is a bright spot in an often dour week. Ada, our faithful cleaner and favourite lady, leaves us tomorrow. So we'll have to say goodbye in the morning. So that's a sad, sad day because she is a lovely, lovely lady. She lifts my spirits because when she speaks to her family in the morning, she always ends the conversation by saying, "I love you." And that really tickles my backbone. I love true expressions of love and affection. And indeed, her family are a lovely, lovely family. So a sad day for the Black Horse and for us at Mirador. We're losing one of our key members of staff. And she swears that it's not because I've been rude to her. Me, rude? You should see me in full flow. Anyway, you're watching Mirador television out of Lewes in East Sussex. And part, if not all, of the reason for our existence is because we are as concerned as other true members of the media. And I say true members because there are a lot that have sold their soul. True members of the media to the threat that circles all the time to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of action, and generally speaking, curtailing the activities of the media. It's serious and it needs fighting. And that is part of the reason that we have this television station. The other part is to try and entertain and inform you, and I hope that we do. Yesterday's program on artificial intelligence was quite fascinating. John Prideaux knows his stuff, and he takes his time and trouble to make sure he investigates properly and gives a fair and balanced view about how much is a threat, how much is hype, how much is a benefit. I just happened to notice that as I just move my hand. It's a lifeline thing because I fall down regularly. You should see me fall. Oh, it's a thing of grace. As I swan to the floor. The trouble is that it is very unseemly and not at all amusing to see me trying to get up. I need help. But I just thought there are all sorts of things that are coming into the news about Parkinson's. It's taken a long time to get up there with cancer. Ada has put the lights out.
Do you want me to turn it back on?
No, it's all right. I just thought when the lights go out again all over the world. And that scared a few people, me singing this morning. Have a nice day, Ada.
I will. I'll see you in the morning.
Okay, darling. When Ada leaves the building, and Ada is about to leave the building, I'm here all on my own. And it's an interesting feeling, being on your own in a pub at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not quite sure what I feel. There's sort of an eeriness about it. By the same. Okay, bye. There's a feeling of melancholy to some extent, knowing that throughout the day, all sorts of personalities will walk through this building from noon on. They'll drink a whole variety of different things, which you can see displayed over my shoulder. But there's sort of a feeling of is it melancholy? Expectation? Anticipation? I don't know. But try it sometime. Go to your local publican and say, please, can I have the key? And can I go in at 7 o'clock in the morning, all on my own? Oh, yes. They're full of tricks like that. I'm privileged. But I'm honest. Ooh. Yes, I'm honest. Now, I've spent time this morning looking at programs. I found a couple. I transferred them, and then in the way that I can do it is I obviously have not saved them because they're not there. So I shall at some stage go back and try to see if I can find them. They were quite amusing and indicative of the free spirit that is Mirador. The dedication to freedom of speech, freedom of media, freedom of society, and yet the responsibilities that we all have to sustain that freedom. You know, I was trying to remember where it was. It was in Armenia that some journalists came to me and said, Mr. Keith, would you please teach us how to do editorial opinion? And I said, yes, of course, I'd be delighted. But what you have to understand is that sort of freedom comes with responsibility. You can't just say what you think and how you feel that you should criticize. You've got to make sure that you can back it up with a reasonable amount of fact and reality to ensure that you are not actually picking on somebody who is defenseless, somebody who said things in good faith or did things in good faith. Oh, yeah, no, you can criticize what they've done and you can express an opinion on it, but you have to make sure that you don't indulge in excesses because it's enraged you or it's upset you. You've got to take it into environmental consideration, take it into context. And we hope that our opinions on this program, or on this station, are done in that spirit. We have some straight talking. Philip Meredith shoots from the shoulder. Harry Adderton most certainly does. Liza Page gives the alternative view, but spends hours and hours and hours researching. What she says that mostly is, if not unpopular, different. Melissa Conte from New York, and Mark Maybe, retired professor, as well as myself. We all express opinions, but we all express opinions based on knowledge and fact. Not, it seems like a nice thing to say or a nasty thing to say for the sake of saying it. Anyway, one thing that we cannot change, actually, that's not true. It is not true. I was in Moscow one year for Moscow Day, when the whole city grinds to a halt and they take a holiday. And the mayor of Moscow sends up airplanes to spray the clouds with, I think it's nitro something. Anyway, it's flakes of things to make sure it does not rain. So actually, keeping the environment in shape is, and it's successive mayors of Moscow that do this, although their mayors tend to stay in power quite a long time, as long as they don't upset the Kremlin. Okay, let's look at the weather. 17 degrees today. Now there is a weather warning in place from 11 o'clock today until 6 o'clock tonight, where we can expect some thunderstorms. There will be some rain, some cloud, actually there's quite a bit of rain today, I think. I mean, it's a mixture. We'll also have some bright spells, but beware of the thunder and lightning. because it is very much in the forecasts. So a 17-degree high, not overly high for the time of year, but not cold either. And looking ahead to the weekend, tomorrow we'll get some more thunder and it's going to be a bit cooler. Saturday it's going to warm up. And Sunday is going to be glorious sunshine and 20 degrees. Wee-hee. Wonderful stuff.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Yes, the Chief of Staff has arrived. I've got to mind my P's and Q's now. No raiding the bar. Coffee without brandy this morning. Ah, dear. And now Declan is a key member of our staff. He's the host at the Black Horse, but he's a man of many parts. He plays a fair round of golf, by the way, and that's where he's off to today. I tried to say to him, Declan, your responsibilities are staying in the pub. No, he said, I'm going to Seaford Head and I'm going to play a round of golf with my pals. And I don't blame him, actually, because he works very hard. And I was discussing with another customer yesterday in the pub, is that running a pub is a bloody hard job. It is no pushover, believe me. And Declan is one of the best and works extremely hard at it. Now, he's a very self-effacing man. He wouldn't he wouldn't take compliments and sort of roll in them. But he's a qualified electrician. He organizes things like stool ball, toads. He was the world champion toad player at one stage. Wow, you don't get there by sitting in the corner of the bar. All in all, a very nice human being. And if you really want to go to a decent pub, that is a pub with a genial and very caring landlord, the Black Horse is for you. Don't knock the doors down in trying to get in at 1 minute past 12, but it's a lovely experience. You walk through those doors and you're in a magic world, absolute magic. And he's cleaning the pipes at the moment, clearing the pipes, so the pint will be perfect. Woo! Look at that. I've been rabbiting on for 18 minutes now. Wow. Amazing where the time goes. Let's take a look at the headlines, shall we? Of the papers. Right. We start with the Guardian, because most of the papers this morning are highlighting the spat between Keir Starmer and Diane Abbott. Now, Starmer is trying hard to put the face of reason on Labour's reputation. Diane Abbott is so left of centre. She's a fireball, and she doesn't care what she says or what she does. But in a funny sort of way, I admire that, because the party has been telling her, you can't say that, you can't do that, you can't do this, and yet she's the longest serving MP for Labour that they've got. I've often said publicly I don't like interviewing politicians. They never give you a straight answer to start off with, but they say what they want to say, never mind the question. And they make it sound as if you're the one that is being unreasonable. Well, Diane Abbott is a master at that. I've met her once, but I've never interviewed her. And I don't actually intend to stick my chin out and do so. She's a firebrand. But in my own way, I've got a sneaking respect for her because she has said, I don't care what you tell me to do. I am going to do what I want to do. And I have the courage of my convictions to do it. And there is no sense in us encouraging people to have the courage of their convictions and then saying to somebody who has, and patently has, you can't say that, you can't do that. Let's be straight. Let's be clear about that, as a politician would say. Let's be clear about that. I admire her, but I don't like the things that she stands for. Diana Abbott made comments at a rally in East London on Wednesday, which led to several of the front pages highlighting her. The Guardian says Miss Abbott's promise to remain as an MP for as long as possible, amid a row over whether Labour will allow her to run for their party in her Hackney North and Stoke Newington seat at the election. Some say they do, and some say they don't. Now, in this particular case, she says they've told her that she can't run, and under no circumstances will she be allowed to be a candidate. Starmer is prevaricating. No, we haven't said that. No, not quite. But she's only been given the party whip back for something that she said. So it's all a bit of a mess. And it had better clear itself up, because that's the sort of thing that can confound an election. It can suddenly be the underbelly, the soft underbelly. Incidentally, there's a little story there of Angela Rayner being cleared of the tax of her, or the sale of her council house home. And apparently, having been cleared and the police aren't going to take any more action, is that the residents around about that property are outraged. And there is no question that, to me, the smell is very sour. Very sour indeed. I wouldn't get away with that sort of thing. You wouldn't. Why should she? And actually, I have been watching in the evening the Mr. Bates and the post office. If the representation is accurate, and nobody has challenged it so far, what people of power will do without any conscience whatsoever. The head of the post office, various MPs, people in the civil service, all behaved reprehensibly. Hello. Oh, Deck's golf partner has just backed into the driveway. Thank you, Deck. Have a good round of golf.
Thank you.
If you're up there playing golf there this morning, watch out for him. He's dynamite. Dynamite off the third tee. He needs to steady his nerves on the first two. Oh dear. What a day. What a day at Seaford Head. It is Seaford Head you're going to, isn't it? Oh, he's gone already. Right, okay. So HMRC have cleared Rayner over tax on the home sale. And a lot of people are very, very unhappy about that. You know what? He's on the way.
Hey, old Robin, 10 minutes early.
Take care.
Morning, Robert. How are you? I'm all right.
The Eye.
I've got everything ready.
Abbott dares Starmer.
Good morning.
Try to stop me.
He's on there, so say hello to him.
Yeah. Good morning. I've warned people on the third tee about you.
On this side. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Yeah, good, my friend. Good.
Now I tell you that the philosophy, the format of this television station is that we're right in the middle of everything that happens. We don't lock ourselves away in a little box. So there we've got the golf crew going out for a round, a well-earned round of golf, I may say.
See you later, Keith.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.
Have a good match, good game. Starmer, try to stop me. Labour plan to ease out a veteran left-winger, but it collapses, it says. A deal was struck with Ms. Abbott, who was suspended from Labour last April for saying Jewish, Irish and traveller people do not face racism all their lives. Can't see what's wrong with that. To step down as an MP on her terms, according to the I paper. The paper says the deal fell apart after media was instead briefed that Labour would bar her from standing, a claim Sir Keir Starmer denies. And I think he should deny it too. Much as we think that little left-wing coterie who get their knickers into a twist about all sorts of things are not particularly attractive people, what we don't want to see is the arbitrary right to say you cannot stand for election, particularly when, against all common sense, Diane Abbott will win again with a huge majority. It's denying the will of the people. The Daily Telegraph. Abbott, I will not be intimidated by Starmer. Woohoo. Ms. Abbott's remarks have caused some Labour members to question Mr. Starmer's leadership. The Telegraph says that a dozen Labour MPs and senior party officials last night broke ranks to attack Mr. Starmer's handling of the row, with one senior figure saying the length of the process frustrated a lot of us. Well, the Mirror. Well, the Mirror is, you expect it to paint a different type of picture. We're behind you, Keir. Victim families' grief. You are pure evil. Teacher murdered, lover then had a drink with his mum. "We're behind you, Keir," reads the Mirror's front page, next to an image of Mr. Starmer's posing with student nurses on his election campaign in Worcester. Elsewhere, the paper also reports that Fiona Beale, Keir Starmer will struggle to plug £38.5 billion spending black hole. "You buckled," it says. "Hunt's win as Labour back down on tax rise." The Daily Express reports on an accusation by the Conservative Party that Labour has a multi-billion black hole in its spending pledges, an accusation Labour also makes to the Tories. On Wednesday evening, Labour ruled out increasing VAT for the next Parliament. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt told the paper it showed Labour had buckled after having spent all week refusing to rule out a rise in the levy. We're very much into you said, you did, you will, the old let's blame one another a bit. Can we say to both parties, to all parties, we are waiting to hear your positive plans, not the Tories did this, or Labour did that, or the Lib Dems were useless, or whatever. We know all that. We've got you tabbed. We don't respect any of you. But you're there. So tell us what it is you're going to do. The Metro. Walk out before Britain goes to the polls. A cynical election dock strike. Oh my goodness me. These doctors have become so militant. It's very difficult to have respect for them anymore. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins has accused junior doctors of pulling a cynical election stunt by calling 5 days of strikes in the week before polling on the 4th of July. The Metro reports that Joint Leaders Dr. Robert Lawrenson has said the walkout will be the biggest and loudest yet. Well, there we are. Now we're down to our favorite Daily Star. Kim Jong-un uses 260 giant balloons to shower South Korea with tons of poop. The Third World War, he says. That's rather clever. Third World War. If you're reading this while eating your breakfast, you might want to look away now. The Daily Star says North Korea's Kim Jong-un used more than 200 giant balloons to drop tons of poop on his neighbors in South Korea. The paper brands the move Third World War. Good play on words, actually. The Financial Times. Europe has a tiny fraction of air power needed to guard NATO's eastern flank. Europe has less than 5% of the air defense capabilities needed to guard its eastern flank against a full-scale attack, according to NATO calculations in today's Financial Times. The paper says some European leaders and military officials have warned that Russia might have the capability to attack a NATO member by the end of the decade. Well, that's something that we really need to take a look at. The Daily Mail, a world exclusive, revealed the Crown's case against Lord Lucan. Unearthed by the Mail after 60 years, the official Scotland Yard report that exposes bombshell new details about how the notorious peer plotted his wife's murder before killing his children's nanny and vanishing without trace. And lastly, the Daily Mail says it has obtained a never-before-seen report. It says reveals a definitive account of Lord Lucan's disappearance. Now, we tend to pop up with these things and make a basic assumption that everybody knows about Lord Lucan. It was way back in, I think, was it the 1970s or the 1980s? Let's see, does it tell us in the no, it doesn't. Anyway, it was around about there. Is that a lucky Lord Lucan, who is a very good-looking professional gambler, was married to a lady who just died recently, I think, and was separated from her. And one fateful night, he broke into the premises, and in the dark, it is assumed, mistook the nanny, the children's nanny, for the wife and killed her. He then took off in a fast car. And as a matter of fact, he was at one time considered for the role of James Bond because of his love of fast cars. And also, in fact, he was a handsome man and a gambler. And he headed south, coming through Uckfield, where he stopped at some friends, and various reports suggesting that he might well have been bumped off by mafia people whom he owed money to. But his car was found in New Haven in a side street, and it is assumed that he got onto the ferry and away he went, and that was the last that he was ever seen. Despite several sightings of him, he has never actually returned, if in fact he's capable of returning. And I think it's Lord Astor has a zoo, and it was suggested that his body may have been fed to the lions in that zoo. But anyway, the Mail has decided to tell all with, they say, never seen before documentation. Well, there we are. That's the headlines, the front pages, and well, now here's interesting things. Is we've got some viewers. Is GGG? Hello, I'm from Uzbekistan. Well, how very interesting. Yes. Isaiah Lyle, love from Turkmenistan. Not sure where Turkmenistan is, but I would assume that it's from Central Asia. Isaiah Lyle, can you see me? No, I can't see you, Isaiah. But there is a little figure to the left, and that may be a photo of you, although I don't think so. GGG, hello, Mr. Keith. I will submit assignments. Well, by all means, we'd love to see them. GGG. Isaiah Lyle, eyeballs, he says, eyeballs, and he puts up some little pictures of eyeballs. Ooh. And GGG, shush, he says, shush. And then Isaiah has followed on with lunch. We'll finish all of my food, I promise. So some slightly facetious remarks, but if they are from Uzbekistan and from Turkmenistan, is very interesting that we are getting into that part of the world. So there you are. There you are. Who knows where we end up? It is. Yes. We are all over the place, to be quite honest with you. We never know where we're going anymore. What we do know is that we increase our penetration almost on a daily basis. And we're very happy. We describe ourselves as hybrid. We are based in Lewis. We look at the local politics. We look at local events, but we also we have correspondence. We have one from Normandy. We have two from New York. We have one from Stoke-on-Trent. And all in all, we are as international and national, for that matter, as we are local. And our slogan is local, but not parochial. We don't deal in lost cats. We're very sympathetic to people who lose their cats, but that's not our role. Our role is to try to translate and interpret what's going on in the world to the benefit of people throughout the world. And we know that we are watched in many places. My favorite is in the very tip of South America, the tip of Argentina, and Patagonia, which has a very strong Welsh influence, by the way, Patagonia. But we are delighted that we have an international audience, and that you may not tap in very often, but when you do, you're quite vocal, and that's very good. And we even if you tap in just with tongue in cheek, we don't mind. We're used to being laughed at, laughed with, but generally speaking, is to generate laughter. TikTok. And it is a wonderful feeling that to have. I'm going to do a little bit more detail now of the news. The Guardian declares that Labour veteran Diane Abbott has set up a clash with Sir Keir Starmer after defying him with her vow to remain an MP for as long as possible. The paper reports that a deal for her to retire from Parliament after her readmission to the Labour Party has broken down. "I will not be intimidated," says the Daily Telegraph headline. The paper says she's thrown Labour's election campaign into turmoil. The Times says the Labour leader is facing a backlash from the left of his party over what it calls a full-blown purge of candidates who had supported the previous leader, Jeremy Corbyn. "Abbott dares Starmer try to stop me," as the Eyes headline, Sir Keir said yesterday that no decision had been taken to bar Diane Abbott, but she claims that she's been told by the party faithful, "You've had it, mate." "We're behind you, Keir," reads the Daily Mirror's headline. The words are written across a picture of the Labour leader posing with student nurses on the campaign trail in Worcester yesterday. Rishi Sunak tells the Times that a vote for the Conservatives is a vote for cuts to interest rates. He also says the decision to call an early election rests on his shoulders alone, and uses the interview to accuse Labour of assuming that it can just glide into number 10 without setting out a clear plan for office. Labour insists it does. The Metro says the planned 5-day walkout by junior doctors in England before polling day has been branded a cynical election dock strike. The Doctors' Union, the BMA, has accused the government of ending negotiations. But the Sun says the junior doctors should have waited for a new government before restarting pay talks. The Financial Times leads with a warning that Europe has what it calls a tiny fraction, less than 5% of the air power that's needed to guard NATO's eastern flank. There's a lovely lady with a lovely smile just walked by the front window. The paper says Russia's war against Ukraine has underscored the importance of air defense. According to the FT, some European leaders and military officials believe that Russia might have the capability to attack a NATO member by the end of the decade. The Daily Mail says it has unearthed a never-before-seen report, which it claims reveals a definitive account of Lord Lucan's disappearance. The paper says the Scotland Yard report from 1975 exposes shambolic new details about how the notorious peer plotted to murder his estranged wife before killing his children's nanny and vanishing without trace. Well, there we go. There we go. We've got the Times here. Rishi Sunak is on the front page of the Times, beaming. The Diane Abbott saga has got a banner headline. Small children prefer R&B or rock to nursery rhymes. Oh dear. We really are taking away the childhood of our children, aren't we? Police injured at the Gaza protest. Sunak I'm confident we will ease the tax burden. The Prime Minister rules out a reform deal despite Farage's demand. Rishi Sunak has ruled out a pre-election deal with Reform UK after Nigel Farage said he wanted something back from Conservatives for helping them to win the last general election. What have we got? On the sports front is Ratcliffe's culture shock. Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos have initiated the biggest shake-up of the working practices and the environment at Manchester United's Carrington training ground in the complex's 24-year existence. The day after an email was sent to all non-football staff inviting them to resign, it emerged that United's new minority owners want to carry out major renovations that will involve knocking through walls of offices to creating two managers' working areas, two communal working areas for managers and his many staff. Well, Manchester United is probably one of the biggest icons in the football world. There's an analysis of why all our tennis stars have gone down in the first round. New York Open, I think it is. Things are only with me. There's some stuff on the rugby. Yeah, I must say that the Times does give quite a lot of space to each sport. Something on the cricket. Well, latest quarter kid on the run to rival Tiger. That's the golf news. Huh. There we go. Pretty headline stuff. Right you are. It is 5 to 9, and I find these little comments that have been sent in from people in Middle Asia is quite amusing, and do keep them coming, chaps and chapesses. We're more than happy to see them. We won't take offence at anything that you say. Okay. Now I'm actually going to play episode 2, I think, of the bloody past. No, it's episode 3 that we're going to play. It'll be a bit scattered this next couple of weeks because we have gone through in sequence episodes 1 to 8. But many of you have said that they haven't seen it before, and it's been around for a little while. So we are going to show you an episode here and an episode there. So here we go.
He sat on the bank while the river still chattered onto him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world. That was the excitement that Mole experienced in the story Wind in the Willows. And indeed, rivers large and small everywhere all have many stories to tell. The River Ouse that flows through Lewes is no different. In fact, for much of the town's history, it has played an important part. Today, the river carries nothing but pleasure craft. But for a long time, it was a busy, bustling port. About a mile upstream from here is the village of Hamsey. It sits on a triangle of land which splits the river as it curves down towards the town. Hamsey is barely a village today. A few houses with the 13th century church standing in splendid isolation. But Hamsey was a Saxon port in the pre-Norman era. Historians estimate that over 1,000 people lived here, populating a port that saw ships sail up the Ouse to trade goods. There is no doubt that the Normans had a bit to do with its demise. The area was handed over to a Norman lord. But the community was attacked by an enemy it couldn't stop. An army of rats, which disembarked from one of the visiting ships, went ashore and infected the village with bubonic plague. The Black Death. The disease devastated Hamsey. And while there is no historic evidence, legend has it that the residents barricaded themselves in to prevent unaffected people coming in and diseased people getting out. Eventually, they starved to death. Named after the black rats which carried the plague, the Black Death killed over half the population in Britain between 1348 and 1349. The survivors founded another village off Ham, the modern thriving village of Opham. The plague attacked Lewes several times over the following centuries, each time causing significant loss of life. So death continued to stalk Lewes, bringing tragedy to the high street in rather greater measure than other UK high streets. Hamsey gone, but Lewes as a port flourished. Ships and barges plied their trade up and down the Ouse, creating an exciting and bustling waterway. Many of these buildings, which stand on an extension of the high street in an area called Cliff, are built with old ship's timbers. Where Argos now stands was a sailor's pub called the Bear, built as a brewery in 1787, and it succumbed to the carelessness of revelry and burned down in 1918. This quiet domestic street, which runs for a short distance parallel to the Ouse, was the sailors' playground, and history relates that there were more than a dozen brothels successfully operating. Today, this street is known as Little Chelsea. Even the name makes it seem a nice place to live. The rather small abodes have found favour with many modern Louisians, and are now favoured homes. And why not? They look good in a twee kind of way. And if you're not living in a former brothel, there are other historical backgrounds to raise the interest. All this talk of pubs and trading around town, it saps my energy. So I sometimes come to this little oasis. The Notts Garden in Southover Park. A lovely little hideaway. Back to the High Street, or at least its extension into the cliff area of Lewes. So I've been wandering around here because Lewes is full of antique stores and models. As I mentioned, go inside some of these shops and you'll find that they're supported by old ship's timbers. Another reminder of the days when Lewes was a port. All this talk of water has made me thirsty. I made several mentions of the time Lewes had 63 pubs. As you would expect, among the 16 that are left, there are some with strong ties to the community. Over the road from the shops, held up by ship's timbers, is the Gardener's Arms. There seems to be a tradition in Lewes, although no one admits to it, of omitting the epithet pub or tavern. This pub is called by locals simply the Gardener's. And the Gardener's it was. The origins of this pub go back to when it was an ordinary house, owned by a gardener. Often, after work, he would invite other gardeners into his front room for a drink. Eventually, it made sense to formalise the ritual. So it turned into a pub. The Gardener's is a true pub. Unusual now, it only serves pork pies and sausage rolls. Yet each year it's in the top tier of finalists for Pub of the Year. Magnificent. Back to the Street of 1,000 Brothels. Well, perhaps not 1,000, but a few anyway. There's a pub called the Snowdrop. Nice pub, they tell me. Interesting for its name and where it stands. This is the site of England's deadliest avalanche. Just after Christmas in 1836, heavy snow built up on the edge of the downs. There were 7 cottages here where the pub now stands. Despite warnings, the people living there went about their business, totally unconcerned about the snow. Then whoosh, down it came, demolishing 7 cottages and taking the lives of 8 people. Time, gentlemen, please. Not heard now, but the admonishment of past landlords that it was time to quit drinking should have been heeded by the cottagers. A disaster both for the country and the town. A brief mention of one last hostelry, the John Harvey Tavern. Named after the founder of a local brewery, the one of 16 to survive to the modern day, Harvey's has been around since at least 1790. and an important inhabitant. Along with Mole and Ratty on the banks of the River Ouse. More on that later. For the moment, back to the bar. How I wish I'd lived in Lewes when it had 63 pubs. Bliss. You might think, from the pubs I've been into, that Lewes is a drinking town. The town constable in the late 1800s didn't think so. The town constable in 1890 didn't want it to be. Here are some notes from the High Constable of Lewes, a gentleman called John Holman, dated 1880. Sunday, the 10th of October, visited all the public houses during morning service. All in good order, except Lewes Arms, several there tippling in service time. Sunday, the 17th of October, visited public houses, all in very good order, except the Lewes Arms. Again, a second time, several persons in both parlour and taproom tippling at 11:30 o'clock, time of divine service. Gave the landlord a caution. Sunday, the 14th of November, visited public houses as usual, witnessed very great indecency in the person of George W. Several persons were tippling during divine service, and on our approach to do our duty, they were permitted to hide themselves upstairs in the pub. This was the third or fourth offence of the same kind. Wow, a bit different today. But beer is very close to the hearts of this Sussex town, because it's one of the main employers and industries. Earlier, I mentioned the John Harvey Tavern. John Harvey started his brewery on the banks of the River Ouse in 1790. He was one of the 16 that flourished here at one time. Now, with just the odd microbrewery popping up here and there, it's the only one. The brewery is close to the hearts of the community. The pubs it owns have in the main remained traditional, while its method of delivery has most definitely remained in the past. Miles Jenner is the chief brewer, and his range of beers reflects the activities of the local community. The dray that trots around town is a symbol of the tradition of the brewery, but also of the town. The beer maker turns out beers named after local events: Firecracker, Tom Paine, Bonfire Boy, and Lewes Castle. Elaine Harvey, synonymous with Lewes. You've been around, or the brewery has been around for quite a long time. Can you develop a little bit of the history for us?
Yes, the family came down, the Harvey family, from London. They were wine and spirit merchants at the end of the 18th century, and they started brewing in Lewes and on this site in the early 19th century.
I can stand next door to a man in a pub in Lewes, and he will swear that Harvey's tastes quite different to anything else, and he won't drink anything else. I mean, what's the secret of the product? Any
brewer's beer is really a derivative of his water and yeast strain. We never talk of water, we talk only of liquor, but a local water supply and the brewer's yeast strain, it gives his beer an individual character. You could take our recipes, exactly the same raw materials, go and brew at another brewery with their water and all their yeast and have a totally different brew at the end of it.
Talking of water, and you mentioned that the barges came up the Ouse. How important was that to the brewery in the past?
Well, I think it was very important. It was, a fundamental form of communication, and if you were bringing a fair few tons of barley upstream, then it was a very sensible way of delivering. But just as industry sent stuff out to the river, so the river sent stuff back to them, and it wasn't unusual to brew with river water around your feet, and The last big flood we had in 2000, we were 6 foot deep in river water. We got our product together very well, we had a good reputation, the brewery was re-equipped, and we were producing a beer which became very much identified with the local community and was dear to their hearts. The fact the building is actually known as Lewes Cathedral tells you something about the way that Harvey's is viewed in Lewes.
The brewery flourished, but Lewes as a port rapidly declined. The familiar barges that had plied the River Ouse in the early 19th century carried loads of clay to the town. But the clay was used to build the beds for railway lines, and the death knell for river traffic sounded. The ships had consigned themselves to history. The first train to run from Lewes was in 1846. Since then, the railway has become an important junction in the national network. Trains from Lewes station run to Brighton in the west, Hastings in the east, Newhaven Port in the south, and London in the north. There have been successes and failures. Other lines were axed over time, with one, the Bluebell Railway, preserved as a steam preservation project. Back to our tale of the High Street. Cliff High Street is an extension of the High Street ending at the base of the Downs. At the end of it is an ancient church, St Thomas of Becket. The Black Death wasn't the only medieval disease to strike Lewes. Leprosy was rife. This infectious and unsightly blight is first recorded in Lewes in soldiers who took part in the Battle of Lewes. It seems that the monks of the priory tended leprous people in 2 hospitals. Of the larger hospital, St Nicholas, little remains, but the smaller hospital of St James also treated lepers. Bones of the hundreds who died in the Battle of Lewes showed that leprosy was widespread.
Don't wear this hat to look pretty, you know. There's a Sherlock gene in me somewhere that gets me into more trouble than enough. So I'm going to stick my head above the parapet and suggest that there's evidence of leprosy here long before the Normans paddled ashore at Hastings.
The church of St Thomas of Becket in Cliff, that's the end of the High Street, up against the Downs, has a leper's slit. This was a channel built into the church wall, so that lepers could take Holy Communion without infecting the congregation. St Thomas's is a very ancient church, with bits of it predating the Normans by quite a few years. The interesting thing about this slit is that it starts and ends inside the church itself. Additions were made to the church over the years, so it appears that the leper's slit was built into the original church, but encompassed within it as it was enlarged. Certainly leprosy entered Europe about the 4th century, but was only virulent in the 11th. But it seems that the disease was already in Lewes well before that. Anyway, the Cluniac Priory tended to lepers until a certain king's greed and love life shut the priory down. So leprosy could be added to the Black Death as a scourge of Lewes.
But let's shuck off the historic events of bloody Lewes and celebrate the river, the way that our friends in Wind in the Willows did, the lovable mole and his friend Gung-Ho Ratty.
Each summer, a raft race is held on the Ouse by the local round table. Teams from organisations, schools, businesses, and even groups of individuals construct weird and wonderful rafts and race each other from Lewes down to the sea at Newhaven. Not a very fair race. The crews bombard each other with flour and water bombs, water pistols, and any other old rubbish. Spectators add to the mayhem by pelting other missiles at the crews.
The first few hundred metres are quite torrid, because from the bridges here, people hurl flour bombs and eggs and all sorts of things at you, really. But when you get past Lewes, it's quite peaceful and serene down the river, and you've got the tide to help you along as well. Last year the theme was the Rio Olympics, so again it was quite open to interpretation. You could just take Brazilian culture, or of course the Olympics. I actually took part last year. I duly sank in New Haven Harbour, unfortunately. But obviously we put the proper safety provisions in place, and we were fished out before we were swept out into the English Channel. There's been suggestions this year that there will be pirate rafts and people drinking rum and trying to board other people's boats, but we'll see how that happens. We're limited for safety reasons to 25 rafts. In the next number of weeks, we're going to have talks with all the safety bodies, and perhaps we may be allowed more, but obviously safety is our main priority. This year I've been absolutely inundated with applications. I think I've sent out over 100 application forms.
Wow! Now, how do you select which of the 25 are going to be lucky?
It's down to, in a lot of cases, the event is sponsored. So in many cases, sponsors may get priority, but overall it's just a lottery really, and or the best rafts will be chosen.
Now, in fundraising, do people just donate, or what do? Do you have people shaking cans?
There's a certain amount of bucket collections, and also there's an entry fee for the raft race itself. A good portion of that money goes to the actual operational costs of providing the safety provisions and so on. But obviously, whatever's left over will go to the local charity.
Right.
This year, we're also in partnership with New Haven Town Council, because they really wanted to get more involved, because obviously it finishes there. So this year we will be supporting a charity in Lewis and a charity in New Haven.
A lot of people line the banks. Do you take an estimate of how many people are here on a good Sunday?
We would estimate maybe 5,000 to 7,000, but with no way of telling really. But it seems to be a very popular event, and the people of the town have taken it to their hearts.
Yes, indeed they have. I mean, it's a wonderful occasion. After all the bloodshed and death in this little town, that regatta makes me feel a lot better. Time for a little nap, I think. Well, there we go. That was episode 3, and we'll play erratically other episodes as we go along. We tend to have busy days and not so busy days. Monday is normally quite a healthy day. Wednesday is a healthy day, and Friday is a healthy day. Tuesday and Thursday tend to be a bit lighter, but much more fun because we have John Henty, who will be here in about 30 minutes or so. And a rollicking good session that always turns out to be. I have a tendency to play from 8 and through until sometimes midday, all in one go, and that makes it difficult for some of you to watch, because you don't want to watch everything. Of course you don't, and why should you? So it's breaking it up is a way to go. So I think what I'll do now is I'm going to take a break for 10 minutes, come back and then prepare for John Henty. So if you those people who want to
chase up with me to do some more things. We'll return in a little while. We'll be back. Those who don't, it's good to have you with us for the period that you were with us today. So let's say toodle pip for the moment. Remind you that the 9th is quiz night, Sunday. The 9th of June is quiz night at the Black Horse. Always rollicking good fun. Do join Declan and the team at 8 o'clock, and it's only a couple of quid, and good value for money. Also, we still offer every Sunday a roast dinner, and plenty of good food. A very good roast dinner it's far too big for me, but I see people around me demolishing with gusto the roast, whatever they choose, and it's a very, very nice way to spend the Sunday lunchtime. So do that. And in the meantime, we'll say toodle pip just for a short period of time, and see you in a little while.